When I look at you, feel real again. Alive. Gods, I want to ride you till you see stars.
Hey guys, it's DBD Gamer Girl here. Welcome back to my channel. So today I kind of had an interesting video idea. I don't think I've seen anybody do this before. I don't even really know why I was thinking about this, but I want to rank the Baldur's Gate 3 origin companionships. And honestly, I've kind of like low-key shipped some of these characters together myself because, for example, like when I was playing Wyll Origin, I really wanted to romance Karlach. And when I was playing Shadowheart Origin, like something was attracting me towards Wyll, and it kind of got me thinking about like all the different dynamics between the characters and if I would ship them together or not. I feel like I've seen a couple of ships of the origin characters like in the fandom, some more than others, but I'm just going to be ranking them based on my opinion. So let's start with Gale and Astarion. This I've definitely seen referred to as like the Bloodweave ship. And I kind of think Gale and Astarion is like a really compelling match. Because, I mean, they're very different in the sense of like their backstories, and their personalities are very different because I feel like Gale, he morally aligns with all of the good choices, whereas Astarion, like especially towards the beginning, he disapproves of a lot of morally good choices and he approves of a lot of like really questionable or morally gray choices. But at the same time, I feel like they both kind of have this theatrical energy. And I think Gale and Astarion would really enjoy each other's humor, and like I think they would tease each other all the time. And they both have tragic backstories, Gale with Mystra and Astarion with Cazador. So I feel like they would be able to relate on a deeper level, and they would kind of be able to confide in each other. I think they wouldn't be serious together all the time, but if they needed to be, they would definitely be able to be. And I think they would be like really sweet and soft with each other, particularly if you went with unascended Gale who sacrifices the crown and unascended Astarion who does not go through with the ritual. I think that would be such a sweet, soft version of them. So for me, honestly, I think that goes in like the top tier, married happily ever after. I could definitely see that working out super sweet. And I think that's why that's one of the most popular ships I've seen, at least personally, in the fandom. Okay, Astarion and Karlach is the next one that I have. I think that one's interesting because Karlach is a little bit golden retriever in my opinion, and you know, Astarion, like he can be kind of sarcastic. He has like an interesting sense of humor, but I think that Karlach could kind of bring out Astarion's softer side because she's so loving and so energetic. And Karlach definitely understands pain from all the things that she's dealt with Gortash and just like having this ticking time bomb in her life. So I feel like her and Astarion could also bond over that. And I think she could bring out Astarion's humor, and they could kind of have like a lighthearted, cute relationship, but also address the deep stuff, kind of similar to Gale and Astarion. But I think the dynamic is a little bit harder for me to picture than it was with Gale, because Karlach is almost like a little too happy-go-lucky for Astarion. So I feel like they give me more friend vibes than lovers. So I'm going to put them in I can see it. Like I could definitely see them having a relationship, but I don't necessarily ship them together. Okay, now let's talk about Astarion and Lae'zel. That one's actually really intriguing to me because I feel like they're probably more likely to butt heads than fall in love, but they do kind of tend to approve or disapprove of similar things. Lae'zel is very disciplined and determined. She's very single-minded and focused. Astarion is somewhat like that, but he's a little bit more like theatrical and flamboyant, I would say. So I don't know. I feel like, but you know, the interesting thing is though, that I do remember that if I did not sleep with Lae'zel or Astarion at the Tiefling party, they do kind of hint at like sleeping with each other and having a fun night, but it was definitely more like lust vibes than love. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I can barely recall the dialogue, but I do remember them hinting at getting together that night. But it seemed very lighthearted and not deep to me. So I don't know, I would put Astarion and Lae'zel in like, it's not cursed because I could kind of see them getting along in some senses, but it's not, I don't really picture it that well, honestly. Okay, now let's talk about Astarion and Shadowheart. I think Astarion and Shadowheart both have pretty traumatic pasts, and they kind of tend to hide behind a curtain of distrust initially, because Astarion, he's pretty slow to trust you, and I don't mean like getting into a relationship physically, but he is very, very slow to mentally trust you, and Shadowheart is very slow to both physically and mentally trust you. So I think they would kind of understand each other in the sense of the mask that they put on, and like a really slow burn romance, and it would take a lot of time for them to establish trust with each other, but they could connect, I think, over their trauma. And I think they would respect each other. And honestly, Shadowheart and Astarion do approve of a lot of the same things, like especially early game. So, and like they like some of the random quirky stuff. Like for example, if you go get whipped by that one guy in the goblin camp, or if you make one of those goblins kiss your feet, like random little quirky things like that, they both approve of it, which I think is so funny. So I think they would honestly be pretty good together. I don't think they're perfect for each other, but I think I could definitely see it, and I think it would last. So I'm gonna put them under long-term relationship. Not one of my favorites, but pretty high up there. Okay, Wyll and Astarion. Wyll and Astarion is a really interesting one, and it's one that I don't personally think is that great. Like, Astarion is super snarky, he has a lot of trauma. I mean, Wyll has trauma too, but Wyll is very noble and gives off heroic vibes, and he's very goody two-shoes and morally right. So in that sense, him and Astarion are polar opposites. Like, they don't approve or disapprove of the same things. Like, they always have the opposite opinions on most of the situations. I think it could kind of go both ways, where Wyll kind of pulls Astarion more into the morally right sense of things, which kind of happens anyways if you go for the unascended Astarion route. Or Astarion could maybe corrupt Wyll a little bit, and they kind of go into a more morally gray territory together. So I don't know, I could see it going both ways, but they do have a lot of interesting banter together. I'm just gonna put it in I don't think it's cursed, but like I just don't see it personally. Okay, Gale and Karlach. I honestly think that's actually kind of sweet, because Karlach's very golden retriever-y and Gale is also very golden retriever-y. I think they would have great banter together. Like, I think they would have so much fun together. And Gale is very soft and understanding, so I think he would be a great support for Karlach's trauma about, you know, having that infernal engine. And I think Karlach would be very understanding of Gale's past with Mystra as well. I think they would make each other laugh all the time. They would be awkward together, and they would just be really cute. So I'm definitely gonna put them in married happily ever after. Like, the more I haven't really thought about this ship before till right now, but like the more I think about it, I think they would be great for each other. Okay, Gale and Lae'zel. Gale and Lae'zel is definitely an interesting one, because Lae'zel is very serious, very disciplined and determined. Gale is more of a happy-go-lucky, like jokey, go-with-the-vibes type of person. So they are kind of polar opposite vibes in that regard, but you know, sometimes opposites attract. And Gale might like how, you know, open and honest and blunt that she is, and I could see Lae'zel kind of respecting Gale and appreciating, you know, all his knowledge. And she could also probably appreciate his humor over time. That being said, it's just not my favorite. Like, I just don't see them vibing in a romantic way. Like, I definitely see it as more of friendly banter. I don't really want to put it in cursed per se, but like, I don't know, maybe it's because there was this one playthrough that I had where I ended up breaking up with Lae'zel to get with Gale, and Lae'zel said, Gale should be just to your tastes, vanilla, to be precise, or something. And it was like so funny. So I feel like, but you know, Gale is not vanilla. Gale is not vanilla, and Lae'zel doesn't know that. So maybe they could be compatible in that aspect as well, but I just don't see them getting to that point. Okay, Shadowheart and Gale. That's definitely an interesting one because I feel like they would both be able to understand each other's backstories. Like Gale is very understanding and Shadowheart is also very understanding once you get to know her. They kind of give you the vibe that Gale would be making dad jokes and Shadowheart would just be laughing at them and like rolling her eyes. Like, I don't know, it just seems like a really, really cute dynamic. I feel like they're both very emotionally intelligent. And they both kind of come with heavy emotional baggage, so I feel like they'd be able to help each other over those dynamics. So I'm gonna put it in, I'm kind of torn between long-term relationship or I can see it. I think I'll put it in I can see it because I haven't really seen that much banter between them in my party, and I feel like they wouldn't necessarily be attracted to each other right away, so I'm gonna keep it a little bit skeptical on that. Okay, now let's talk about Wyll and Gale. I feel like they would actually probably be a really good match because they're both very morally good, like they're always going for the morally good options. So they would definitely be able to bond over having the same values. And I think they're both very smart and they could have a lot of intellectual conversations, and I feel like they both have a tendency to yap about certain topics, so they could definitely do that with each other. And I think they're both pretty emotionally stable, generally speaking. I mean, Wyll definitely is. Gale is a little bit more questionable in his emotional stability, but I feel like as the game progresses, Gale gets more and more stable and mature emotionally. So I think Wyll would kind of also be able to assist him with that. Wyll is really into poetry, Gale is into books, like they're both kind of scholarly and into literature and creative, so I kind of actually really like the vibe of Wyll and Gale the more that I think about it. Again, this is not a ship that I've seen very much in the fandom, personally at least, but I'm gonna go for a long-term relationship because I feel like they complement each other very well. Like sometimes I feel like opposites attract, some cases I feel like similar people attract more. This is like one of those cases where I think their similarities would actually work to their benefit. Okay, now let's talk about Lae'zel and Karlach. This is a really interesting dynamic because I feel like Karlach would really soften up Lae'zel, because with Lae'zel's romance, typically she's pretty intense and brutal in the beginning, but she definitely softens up a lot towards the end of the game as you romance her. So I feel like Karlach would contribute to that because of her golden retriever, you know, super lovery vibes. But the only thing that I'm skeptical about is in the beginning, in a romance, Lae'zel is very like, this is a transactional only, like it's only about lust, I'm not gonna cuddle, I'm not gonna fall in love. And I feel like to someone like Karlach, that would be probably too much and too off-putting too early, to the point where she wouldn't be able to get into the relationship, because the romance with Karlach starts off so differently. Like she's super excited, she expresses her interest in you immediately, like romantically, and I don't think I can see Lae'zel and Karlach ever getting to that point, even though it may work eventually, just because of how it comes across initially. So I'm just gonna put them in cursed. I mean, I feel bad, I don't think cursed is such a bad category to put, honestly. Like, I probably should rename that, but whatever. I'm just gonna put it there. Okay, now let's talk about Shadowheart and Lae'zel. Okay, I love this so much because I am a fan of enemies to lovers. Like, I love enemies to lovers trope. And Shadowheart and Lae'zel, from the very beginning of the game, they don't trust each other. They have so much tension. They have an opportunity to kill each other. You have to talk them down. But I can definitely see the trope of them slowly growing on each other because they do have a lot in common ultimately, like in their hearts, I feel like, with their devotion to their people and their goddesses, and just like the conflict that they have in letting people down, and just all this deep religious emotional trauma and burdens that they carry. So they would really, if they talk properly, they would really be able to relate to each other and understand each other. And I feel like they do have a lot of tension between them, and I feel like they just really vibe well together once they get past their initial dislike for each other. And Honestly, I feel like I've seen a lot of situations in which people that really, really dislike each other in the beginning sometimes end up becoming best friends. And I think that's so funny, and this would be like the perfect case, except I think that it would be romance. Like, I don't think it gives a friendly vibe. So I'm gonna put them in married happily ever after, because that is one of my favorite tropes, and I think one of the ones that I've seen most widely in the fandom as well, probably for that reason. Okay, Wyll and Lae'zel. Honestly, I don't see this happening because I feel like Lae'zel would not be able to take Wyll very seriously. I know Wyll, like, I feel like he would respect Lae'zel and her discipline and her dedication, but I think Lae'zel would kind of be over Wyll's goody two-shoes type of vibe, and I just don't see that many similarities in them, so I'm gonna put them in the bottom tier. Again, I feel like cursed is a little bit dramatic to describe how I feel about that ship, but I just don't see it at all, basically. Okay, Shadowheart and Karlach. It's not my favorite. Again, I feel like Karlach is a little bit too golden retriever, and Shadowheart is a little bit closed off and reserved in the beginning. I mean, I could see those opposites attracting, but I feel like they don't really match each other's vibe. Like, they seem better as friends. I don't know if I can really see a romance between them per se. I could understand how Karlach's, softness and friendliness and golden retrieverness might bring Shadowheart out of her shell and get her to trust her. So it could be cute, but I don't know. I feel like they don't vibe that well together. I'm gonna put them in I can see it, maybe. No, I'm gonna put them in I don't know. If you are a fan of Karlach and Shadowheart ship, please tell me like what you think that they would get along on, because I'm actually really curious. All right, now let's talk about Shadowheart and Wyll. Okay, so Shadowheart and Wyll, I don't know why, I just love them so much. When I was doing Shadowheart Origin, something about it was making me gravitate towards Wyll. I've started 2 Shadowheart Origin playthroughs, and I've been going for Wyll in both of them. I don't even really understand why, but their connection just seems so genuine. Like, I feel like Wyll having his, super positive outlooks on life, and he's super heroic, and he's really understanding. And Shadowheart, she's like very reserved, but she does open up to you slowly and wants to trust and wants to love. And I feel like Wyll is like the perfect Disney prince romance to like bring that out of Shadowheart. Like, he's just like the perfect amount of serious but also fun, like the dancing and stuff like that. But also understanding, like the heaviness of the trauma going on in the world around them. I feel like Wyll would be the soft kind of love that would just be perfect for her to get her to kind of open up and be herself with him. And, she's into kind of a couple of quirky little things, but I think Wyll would actually find that endearing. So I'm gonna put them, I don't know, like, I'm really biased on this one. I feel like I don't know why, but I'm gonna put them in married happily ever after because I think they're so sweet together. Okay, Wyll and Karlach, another one of my personal favorites because, again, it's enemies to lovers. Like, I love the idea of it started out with he's like, I really need to kill this devil. That's my whole objective. And then when you encounter her, he kind of hears her out. And even though he's really itching to go and just kill her, he does hear her out. And then she appreciates that. And then the fact that they kind of, once they get over that initial hurdle, they can fall in love. And I absolutely love that. And honestly, with Wyll, I feel like having a golden retriever girlfriend is actually really good for him. Like, I feel like they'd be really sweet together because Wyll was really cute too with like his little dancing in Act 2 and his romance. And Karlach is super sweet and bubbly. So this is another one of those cases where I feel like they have a lot of similarities that, they would attract to each other. And also, if you think about Endgame, if you decide to go to Avernus with Karlach, if Wyll decides to go to Avernus with Karlach, well, he wanted to go to Avernus anyways to deal with Mizora. So it even works out lore-wise for them to go to Avernus together. Actually, in my first playthrough, I was romancing Wyll, And at the end of the game, me and Wyll and Karlach all went to Avernus together, which I thought was really cute. And I think that's when I initially started thinking, like, honestly, Wyll and Karlach would be absolutely perfect together. So I'm also putting them in married happily ever after. I feel like there's a lot of ships I like that I didn't realize, honestly. Okay, Lae'zel and Halsin. Honestly, I can't really see this at all. I mean, I'm trying to think, what do they even have in common? I feel like they're kind of polar opposites because Lae'zel is very energetic and very brutal and extreme. Halsin is definitely more of a calm, like stable energy. Like, I feel like they're kind of opposites in that sense, and maybe they would balance each other out well in that way, but I don't see it. I don't think they would be attracted to each other at all. Like, their vibes are so completely different. Halsin and Astarion. Halsin and Astarion is actually an interesting one. I feel like maybe to some degree they might be able to bond over a couple of things. Halsin is very loving in a very soft way, and I feel like he might be able to help Astarion learn how to love in like a soft, gentle way. That being said, Halsin is polyamorous, and even though technically in the game Astarion is okay with you being polyamorous as well if you're romantic with Astarion, I just don't think Astarion really would be polyamorous per se. It just doesn't seem to fit his vibe, and if you do go tell Astarion, oh, I'm really interested in sleeping with Halsin, he says, oh, is it because, you know, we haven't done it in a while, or is there something wrong? Which makes me think that he's not really actually okay with it. So I don't know if Halsin's polyamorous vibe would necessarily fit Astarion. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. Minthara and Astarion. Okay, I could see this being the perfect evil playthrough. Like, I think they complement each other very well in terms of their dark choices and certain dark themes. If they were together, Astarion would 100% ascend. Like, there's no question about it. I'm not saying that they're necessarily good for each other, but they would definitely feed into each other's toxicity. They might just, you know, become like rulers of the absolute in the entire world. I feel like they have a lot of backstory of cruelty and manipulation. They have really dark childhoods, and I think they'd be able to bond over that and just basically be a evil power couple. So in terms of the chemistry of that, I'm definitely putting it in married happily ever after. Even though it's not like a little soft picture perfect romance, it has power and intensity like in its own way. Lae'zel and Minthara, honestly, for the same reason, I feel like they would also complement each other very well in some of their more aggressive tactics. I think they would respect each other's aggression and brutal honesty to some degree because they both have that characteristic. I think they're both very passionate. They might challenge each other pretty well, but I think they have a lot of things in common. I think I would put that in maybe long-term relationship. I don't like it quite as much as Astarion and Minthara because I can see them like evil laughing together. But Lae'zel and Minthara would probably also get along pretty well. Okay, Halsin and Wyll, I mean, they're okay. But, I mean, Halsin is just to me, he's a very calming, healing, protective energy. He's pretty morally good. Wyll, in the same sense, is very morally good, but I think they would just be like super vanilla together. Like, they'd be almost too similar. They wouldn't have too much to talk about. They'd be very self-righteous together, and I just don't like the idea of that. Like, I just don't think they'd be attracted to each other. They might be really good friends, but I think that's as far as it would go between those two. Minthara and Halsin, I just don't see that at all. Like, I think Halsin is too much of a nice guy for Minthara, honestly. I think he would judge her for a lot of her comments, and I don't think she would appreciate that very much. So I'm just gonna put it in the bottom tier. Minthara and Karlach. That's another one that I don't really see. Karlach is very golden retriever-y, as I've said 1,000 times already in this video. And Minthara gives me very dark vibes. I know she has a softer, more vulnerable side, but I don't think Karlach's personality is the type that would bring that soft side out of Minthara. I think they'd be very surface level friends. Like, I don't really see any deep intensity possibility to a relationship between them. It could be, you know, a polar opposites type romance, but again, I don't see it. I think I'm gonna put it in eh. I don't know. It's either between eh or cursed, but I think I like it a little bit better than, you know, Minthara and Halsin, for example. Because Karlach at least would not judge Minthara, I don't think, but she might be taken aback by some of her ideals. Okay, Karlach and Halsin. They could be cute together for sure, but I mean, Karlach gives me a little bit more monogamous vibes, even though I don't think she explicitly says that. Let me know if you can actually sleep with Halsin while you're romancing Karlach, because I don't think I've ever tried that or done that, so I'm not sure if she allows it or not. But to me, she feels very like she's very much in love with one person and she's really obsessed with one person. So I don't think she would be into polyamory very much. Even if she did support it, like she wouldn't necessarily want it. I think their energies are pretty good, but Karlach has a very happy, bubbly energy. Halsin's a little bit more calm and tempered. I don't think they would vibe together very well at all. I just don't see it at all. Shadowheart and Minthara. That is another interesting one because I definitely think that Minthara could kind of bring out the more evil version of Shadowheart, because Shadowheart can be soft, obviously, but she could also just go and kill the Night Song. So I think that she would become a Dark Justiciar if she was with Minthara. So I don't know, I really like that, actually, kind of similar to Lae'zel and Minthara. I think they would be good together in an evil playthrough. I guess you could argue the opposite point, and they both have a little bit of a softer core, and they are very vulnerable with you once you get to know them. So there is a chance that they would bring that side out of each other and support each other in that sense. But I don't know, like, overall, I kind of still am leaning towards they would be better together in an evil playthrough. They have a lot of trauma with their faith, so I feel like they could definitely bond over that. Okay, now for Shadowheart and Halsin. Again, I don't really see them together. I don't know what it is about Halsin, but I just can't see him with most of these characters in like a long-term relationship. I don't know if that's because of the polyamory thing. I don't think it is. I think it's more just so his temperament doesn't really align too well with some of these characters. Like, they have so much complexity to them. And Halsin is like a little bit more 2D to me, no offense. So again, like, I feel like Shadowheart would be too much for him. So I just can't ship them together. I don't know why. Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about Gale and Halsin. It's just giving me very meh vibes. Like, I feel bad putting it in cursed. I should change it to I don't see it at all. There, now I feel better. I just don't see it. Like, I just don't understand why you would ship those two. I don't think they would really understand each other's backstories. I mean, I guess what they do have in common is that they're both morally good, but I think it kind of about ends there. Next one is Gale and Minthara. See, this could be really interesting, actually, because I feel like Gale probably has the most potential out of most of the characters to bring out the softer side of Minthara. Like, I feel like he could maybe get through to her through his humor. Like, I feel like she'd be kind of annoyed with him initially, but then slowly be opening up to him. I could also see it going the totally opposite way, where she kind of gets into his head and he gets a little bit more morally corrupt, and then he goes for the crown of Karsus for power, and they want to rule the world together, and he's a god. So I could definitely see that dynamic in both senses, both the soft side and the more evil side. So I'm gonna put them in long-term relationship because I could see it working out either way, honestly. Now for Minthara and Wyll. So I don't know, even though Wyll and Gale are kind of similar in terms of their moralities, I don't think Wyll would be able to get Minthara to open up to him. I think Minthara would always think that he's a little too self-righteous. Gale is not really like that as much as Wyll is. Like, Wyll gives off very, like he'll judge you for having a wrong morality type of vibes, whereas Gale does not feel judgmental to me really at any point. So Wyll would be judging Minthara, and Minthara would be judging Wyll. So I'm just gonna put it in eh. Like, I mean, it's not the worst, but I don't really see them working out too well. Anyway, so that's my ranking on these ships. It was kind of interesting thinking about all these origin character ships, because I've seen like a couple of these, you know, out in the wild on TikTok or in fanfics, but I haven't really thought about every single potential combination till now. Let me know what your favorite or most hated ships are in the comments down below. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.